Hello and welcome, I'm Ruby Barlow and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Iran offers to help facilitate dialogue between Afghanistan and Pakistan after Islamabad declares open war on the Taliban and launches airstrikes on Kabul following border clashes. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Tehran stands ready to assist talks to reduce tensions and promote cooperation between the two neighbours. Hillary Clinton tells a congressional panel she has no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and calls for President Donald Trump to testify under oath about his past association with the financier. She testifies behind closed doors as Bill Clinton prepares to appear after both agree to comply with a subpoena from the Epstein investigation, while all deny wrongdoing. The United States and Iran make progress in talks over Tehran's nuclear program, Oman says, but end hours of negotiations without a breakthrough amid a massive US military build-up and threat of possible strikes. Mediator Oman confirms both sides will resume discussions after capital-level consultations, with technical talks set for next week in Vienna following meetings in Switzerland. Ukrainian and US officials meet in Geneva for post-war reconstruction talks despite a deadlock with Russia, as Kyiv seeks to finalise key settlement details at a trilateral meeting next month. Top negotiator Rustem Omarov says participants speak with President Volodymyr Zelensky after the session, which follows a night of Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure. Netflix says it will not raise its takeover offer for Warner Bros. Discovery, effectively ceding the media giant to a rival bid from Paramount Skydance. The streaming company says the deal is no longer financially attractive after Warner Bros. Discovery's board declares Paramount Skydance's proposal superior under its existing merger terms. A US official says at least 2 Americans are on a speedboat fired upon by Cuba's Coast Guard, leaving 1 dead and another injured off the island's northern coast. 4 people are killed and 11 wounded in Wednesday's incident, with officials saying others on board, including a US K-1 visa holder and possible legal permanent residents. Denmark will hold a parliamentary election on March 24th, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen announces, amid a surge in support over her stance against US pressure on Greenland. Frederiksen has rallied European leaders against President Donald Trump's renewed interest in annexing the Arctic island, with polls suggesting the dispute boosts her popularity despite domestic cost of living concerns. Britain's ruling Labour Party loses a key Manchester by-election to the left-wing Greens, with official results dealing a fresh blow to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Green candidate Hannah Spencer wins in Gorton and Denton with nearly 15,000 votes, as Labour falls to 3rd place behind Reform UK in one of its traditional strongholds. And now to our breaking story. A strong earthquake struck Kolkata and several parts of eastern India, sparking panic among residents. The tremors were felt around 1:30 p.m. local time, with people across many areas reporting noticeable shaking. According to initial seismic data from the USGS, the earthquake had a magnitude of 5.3. The quake's epicenter is located in Bangladesh, about 26 kilometres southwest of Khulna, near the India-Bangladesh border. The earthquake occurred at a depth of 9.8 kilometres beneath the Earth's surface. Though the tremors were felt widely, there have been no confirmed reports of any damage or casualties so far. Local authorities are continuing to monitor the situation closely. Residents in affected areas have been advised to stay alert and follow safety precautions. Pakistan has escalated conflict with Afghanistan, launching airstrikes on major cities including Kabul and Kandahar. The strikes come after a night of shelling near the Torkham border, which saw multiple civilian injuries, including 7 wounded at a refugee camp. Pakistani Defence Minister Khwaja Asif declared an open war with the Taliban government after Afghan forces attacked Pakistani troops in response to airstrikes. The incidents follow months of border violence, with both sides losing dozens of soldiers. Pakistan accuses Afghanistan of harbouring militant groups, a claim denied by the Taliban. Several attempts to negotiate a ceasefire have failed. Listen in.
وادرو ګرځش پمبر په ولاړ چیرې کله وادرو په ناس آرامونه ذکرې نه دې سرکار مرسته ویلي چې بلارسه دا ځای خالي کړ نه هغه سرکار مرسته اطلاع راکړې دا مسلمانان دي دواړه ملکونه جنگ دي نه سره کوي وادرو نمبر چې موږ مسکینان خلک دي نه روزانه سته نه بل روزګار سته بازار راسه په بازار کې مو وړه په پور اخیستي دي کور څه مو راوړي
دلته تقریبا له افطاري بعد له روزه ماتې بعد دلته موږ خپل مثال د خیمو کې سره آرام کوو نو تقریبا لس نیمې بجې مرمۍ ولګېدې خلکو ګاډي هر شی سره وتښتېدل سامانونه هم دلته پرېښودل زیاتې له دې جنه تر شهید چوکه پورې خلک پیدل تللي دي او چا سره مثال سامان یې پرېښی ده بچی پرېښي دي چا بچي ورک دي دوه درې ماشومان ورک دي مرمۍ تقریبا لس نیمې بجې به لګېدلې دې کې درې څلور کسان زخمیان دي
دغه سایه کې نږدې مرمۍ ولګېدلې ماشومان وینې پرتې هم نه لیدل دوه درې ماشومان یو دوه زنانه درې زنانه دا زخمیان کړي دي باقاعده نور د شپې طالبانو به وړي نه به وړي اوس موږ په دغه سایه وګرځي نور څه مو نه لیدل خو حالات بېګا ډېر ګډبډ او ډېر خراب و د سامانونه هر شی پاتې دي د کور سامانونه پاتې دي بسترې پاتې دي.
And now joining us live, we have Colonel Sanjeev Sirohi, who is an international relations and defence expert, joining us from New Delhi. Colonel, from your military and tactical perspective, what do you see as, with the use of jets and heavy shelling, indicating about this conflict compared to previous violence and skirmishes along the border?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on your channel. And this thing was very, very unfortunate, but it was expected. Because you see that in the month of February itself, there were a number of attacks on Pakistan, where the people, lot of security forces and a lot of civilians had died. So in response to that, Pakistan carried out air strikes in Paktika and in Naranga. And after that, the Afghanis, they gave the warning to Pakistan that they will have to pay, they will repay in the same coin. And that is the reason that yesterday in the night, the Afghani soldiers or Afghani security forces, they attacked Pakistan posts. And as per the reports which are claimed by the Afghanistan, they have captured about 19 posts, killed about 55 soldiers, and about more soldiers are being injured. Whereas on Afghanistan's side, casualties are only 8 dead and 11 wounded. But if you see what is Pakistan talking about is that they say that 133 Taliban fighters have been killed and another 200 have been injured. So these figures, we don't trust these figures from both sides. We don't know what are the actual casualties from both sides. But yes, now the thing is that this is, until there is a mediation and there is a ceasefire, this will carry on because they have got very long history of dispute on Durand line, which is not being accepted by Afghani from the day one. So I think, and the Pakistanis are blaming that whatever terrorist activities are taking place inside Pakistan, it is because of that the fighters of TTP, they take their shelter in Afghanistan, and from Afghanistan they come and create problems for Pakistan's security forces. So there is a mistrust between both the countries, and as a result of that, this fighting is taking place. And the another reason which I can think of is that in view of the escalation between Iran and the USA, and which is likely that the America may attack Iran. So it is basically it may be basically to neutralize the Taliban, because last month only Taliban have said that if there is a war between United States and Iran, we will support Iran and we'll fight with Iran in support of Iran. So I think there are a number of reasons, but let's see how things move. Ruby.
Now, Colonel Sirohi, what role do you see as non-state armed groups playing in this conflict on both sides of the border, and how might they be influencing decisions to escalate or de-escalate the conflict in this situation?
Look, as far as the non-state actors are concerned, as far as the Taliban or TTP is concerned, TTP is a non-state actor and they have got their own problems with Pakistan security forces. So I think the TTP is not going to stop, and they will take revenge of whatever casualties Pakistan has uh, created by attacking by airstrikes in Afghanistan. So I think it is just in retaliation to that. Now, as far as the Pakistan foreign policy is concerned, there is a very, very different foreign policy in the sense that foreign policy of Pakistan with regard to the neighbors is not decided by the foreign ministry of the government of Pakistan. It is decided by the military establishment. So whenever the military establishment is in charge, you will realize that the problem is not going to die down so soon because there is no diplomacy involved. The only thing is fighting is involved. And when both sides they accuse each other, then who's going to stop this fighting? Ruby.
And just looking ahead now, what range of scenarios do you see unplaying as we move ahead in terms of military engagement, humanitarian consequences for the people in the area, particularly the Afghan refugees who were in Pakistan, and perhaps diplomatic efforts from other regional actors, perhaps to prevent further escalation?
Look, as far as casualties are concerned, the casualties are going to take place on both sides. And as far as the Afghan refugees is concerned, there is only Turkom border crossing from where the Afghan refugees have been going back to Afghanistan from Torkom border crossing. But now the Torkom border crossing is also under fire. So this movement of Afghani who are going back to their country may be jeopardized. And as a result of that, there will be more tension. And secondly, the border has been closed for quite some time. So there is humanitarian crisis. There is crisis regarding the essential commodities as far as Afghanistan is concerned, because Afghanistan is a landlocked country. They have no access to this thing sea. So that is their basic issue. So and they have requested number of times that Pakistan should allow cross-border movement of all the items. But Pakistan, as and when there is a tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan, first thing Pakistan does is they close the crossing. As a result, the Pakistan has to suffer because of shortage of essential commodities. Now, when the fighting started off, now the people all around the world, the countries all around the world are ready to mediate between both the parties. Russians are ready, Chinese are ready, even Iran foreign minister has also said that he is ready to mediate between both the countries. So I think the countries will get involved, and if both the countries they think that yes, this is incorrect and they must stop it. So I think the countries will get involved and negotiation will take place, and the war should be stopped. I think it will be stopped. Ruby.
Colonel Sanjeet Sarohi, thank you so much for joining us today on the show and sharing your thoughts. Now moving to our next story, a deadly explosion and fire at a cafe in Shukchinsk, Kazakhstan has killed at least 7 people and left 19 others injured. Among the casualties was a 16-year-old girl. Local authorities reported that as many as 13 victims remain in hospital, some in serious condition. The incident occurred on Friday and the cause of the blast is still under investigation. Authorities have not provided further details about the circumstances surrounding the tragedy, which has shocked the community. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has called on the United States to drop its excessive demands in order to reach a nuclear deal. Speaking to Egypt's top diplomat, Araghchi emphasized that success requires seriousness and realism from both sides. Though he did not specify which demands he meant, the US has raised concerns over Iran's ballistic missile program and uranium enrichment, calling them red lines. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump recently warned that Iran's missile program poses a significant threat, stating Tehran could soon develop missiles capable of hitting the US. Despite the tension, both sides have made progress in talks, with further technical discussions scheduled in Vienna. This comes as the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, is en route to Israel's northern coast as part of a US military buildup in the region. Now joining us live, we have Ross Feingold, who is a political analyst out of Taipei in Taiwan. Thank you so much for joining us, Ross.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Now, in your opinion, what does this latest update signal about how the negotiations are progressing between Iran and the United States?
Probably the one signal we could take away from this is that the two sides continue to have a willingness to talk. And I think everybody can agree that that's a good thing because it avoids hostilities. How long U.S. patience will last, I mean, that of course is an unknown, but President Trump for the moment seems to have told his team, his negotiating team, to continue with talks. But ultimately, what the United States expectation from this negotiation is pretty clear, and the Iranian side is clear on that as well. And this has to do with the long-range ballistic missile program, and the nuclear weapons research programs. And Iran has to move on both of these. So at some point, and we don't know when that is, but at some point, it's very likely that President Trump will lose patience if the Iran government will not make concessions.
Ross, what could these possible catching points in the negotiations? We don't know what these catching points are so far, but why would Iran see them as unreasonable? What could they possibly be, in your opinion?
Iran seems to maintain this great desire to be a regional military power, and their missile programs as well as nuclear program, even if they insist that it's civilian, the reality is very few neighboring countries or countries further away like the United States trust Iran when they say their research program is only for civilian energy purposes and not for weapons purposes. So, again, Iran sees these programs as core to maintaining its power and its influence in the region, and they are very reluctant to make concessions. Now, if they say that they need long-range missiles to protect their national security, again, nobody takes that seriously because countries further away, like Israel's not trying to invade or occupy Iran. So why would Iran need missiles to attack countries so far away? If they actually have a military need with regard to their national security, then it's along their borders. It's not countries many hundreds of miles away. So again, they insist that they need these things for their national security. Nobody believes them, and that's why President Trump very likely will at some point lose patience with them.
Okay, and for the last question on this topic, Ross, do you think this statement about excessive demands is a true update on how the negotiations are progressing, or perhaps a save face or a signal to the Iranian public, perhaps to reinforce their position in these negotiations?
Yeah, that's a really good question, especially the last part, whether this is some kind of signaling to the public. I think it does show that, on the one hand, Iran is very, very reluctant to make concessions, but on the other hand, they know what they need to do, and they do need to end these programs or significantly reduce the scope of these programs and allow a very large amount of international inspection and transparency. So they are probably grappling with this internally because, frankly, the positions from the United States as well as neighboring countries in the region is quite clear. So it's the internal debate in Iran that's ongoing, and that's probably why they're describing it as excessive demands as they debate internally whether or not to make concessions.
Now, Ross, please don't go far as we move to our next story out of the United States, where the US Department of Homeland Security agents have detained a foreign student from Columbia University early Thursday after entering a residential building under the pretext of searching for a missing person. The student, identified as Almina Agayeva, was taken into custody, sparking outrage amongst university officials and students. Columbia University acting president Claire Shipman said that law enforcement agents had made misrepresentations to gain entry to the building. She also stressed that federal agents need a judicial warrant to enter a non-public university areas, including student housing. After a few hours, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani announced that he had discussed the case with President Donald Trump, who assured him that the student would be released soon. Later in the day, DHS stated that it had freed Agayeva and launched removal proceedings against her. And joining us again, we have Ross Feingold, a political analyst located out of Taipei in Taiwan. Now, Ross, have these proceedings made the United States a less appealing location for international students worldwide? All of these immigration actions against foreign students studying in the United States?
There might be data that reflects that, but I think we should look more over the long term rather than just 1 year into the Trump administration. It's obvious that the Trump administration has been willing to use legal authorities that are available to it to rather aggressively revoke the student status of foreigners who engage in political activities that are counter to administration policies. This has resulted in litigation in some cases as well. So if there's a reduction in the number of foreign students who want to come to America in the short term, that certainly wouldn't be a surprise. But again, I would look over the long term, because the reality is many students don't want to study in the United States, and they might just calibrate their activities accordingly. What I mean is they might go to the United States and they'll just avoid engaging in political activities, knowing the position of the Trump administration on this issue.
And now just to our last question, Ross, is it unusual for a mayor of a city, well, New York is one of the largest, to weigh in on this case as Zoran Mamdani has done?
I don't think he had any choice. He ran for mayor as an opponent of Trump administration, and specifically Trump administration policies. This event occurred within New York City. Even if it involves a foreign national who's not technically a New York City citizen, but they are a resident. So again, I think he had no choice, because otherwise, if he was quiet, people would say, well, you're a wimp. You're not following through on those bold promises and commitments you made as a candidate. So he had to get involved.
Ross Feingold, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your thoughts with us. Now to our next story in Europe. Denmark is set to hold its parliamentary election on the 24th of March. According to reports, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen seeks to capitalise on a surge in support following her defiant stance against US pressure over Greenland. Reports suggest the Greenland crisis has increased Frederiksen's international profile, building on her response to COVID-19 and support for Ukraine. The Social Democrats faced a major defeat in the 2025 municipal elections, losing Copenhagen's mayoralty after 87 years. Support reportedly dropped to 17% in December, but has since risen to 22%, boosted by Frederiksen's handling of the Greenland case. In the 2022 general election, the party secured 28% of the vote. And that's all that we have time for today. Please keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.